Good evening, everyone. Greetings. Yeah. This is Jeff with Astro Scoop, Deep Dive Astrology Coaching. It is 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or Eastern Time, or Eastern Summer Time. And I was having some health issues last weekend, so that is the reason for the lack of a live stream. Just wasn't up for it. So tonight we will finish talking about Cancer, and 2 weeks ago we talked about the second decan of Cancer. I've actually watched some videos where some astrologers say decan. I don't know if I've ever heard that before. So I've always said decan or decanates, meaning tens. But this, I watched one young gentleman in his 30s talk about the Cancer-3rd Decan, but he said, I'm going to talk about the Cancer. He said, I'm going to talk about late Cancer-3rd Decan people. So that's kind of interesting. So it's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, July 19th, 2025. And we will wait a few minutes to see if anyone else comes in, because I know not only have I not have a live stream in 2 weeks, but my timing's thrown off because I keep going back and forth between Fridays and Saturdays, either 7 or 8 p.m. So keep up with me on X, which is Astro_Scoop, and Instagram, which is AstroScoop7. So those are the two main places where I will post the post for the week, the current period of what I usually talk about, my reels and my posts, and then also when the live streams will be. But I think for now, I think maybe for the rest of the summer, for July and August, I may keep this time slot, Saturdays at 8 p.m. for the live stream instead of Fridays at 8. It gives me a little more time to prepare, and Fridays can be a little crazy in the afternoon and evening. So for now, make a note. We'll do Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. AstroScoop 3801 here on YouTube, and again, follow me on X and Instagram. X is Twitter, and Instagram as well. But lots to talk about. We have today's the 19th, so we are starting the cusp, we're starting the Cancer Leo cusp today, which I'll talk more about that next week. But we will begin it today, and this is the last 2 to 2.5 degrees of Cancer before we enter Leo in a couple days. So this is a very, very strong period and strong point in the summer that where it's getting to be later summer, or we've been in the summer a full month, full calendar month, and then now we're almost Leo. So we start summer, we go from Gemini Cancer cusp to early Cancer. Now we're in late Cancer, and then we're going to be coming up on early Leo. And Leo is that sort of that feeling that the heat of Leo physically in the summer in most parts of the country. I mean, I'm looking to the west right now. It's 8:04, and the sunset now is starting to go the other way. So instead of increasing, it's decreasing, which is kind of nice because it gives a nicer glow a little earlier, and then of course it's not as hot between like 7 and 9 p.m. It's not as hot. So our sunset is in about 15-20 minutes, as opposed to it used to be in about 30 or 40 minutes, and then it wouldn't get dark till closer to 9, at least here on the East Coast. So that's kind of interesting. I can feel that pull. And then when we get into Leo, the cardinality or the push of Cancer is a little more settled because Leo is fixed. So we'll talk about that as well. So let's just give it a little time, see if anyone else pops over. I was going to do this live stream on StreamYard because I'm trying to get StreamYard to work better, but I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong, or glitchy, maybe with my computer or the internet connection. But on YouTube, I can't share my screen here, at least the way I have it set up. And on StreamYard, I shared my screen several weeks ago. So I'll try that maybe again next week. But I might have to look into some new software where I can share my screen, because I miss doing that. And I can show all of you, good examples when we talk about a chart. Instead of just holding it up, I like to have it on the screen, which is just nicer. It's just like it's clear and clean, and you can kind of follow along. But so this late Cancer energy is July 11th to the 18th. So officially it ended yesterday. We're still in Cancer, and we're starting the cusp. So the Cancer-3rd Decan, or Decan, I guess as some people say, is ruled by, so all Cancers are ruled by the moon always, but this Decan or Decan has a Neptune component. So being the most mature version of Cancer, it's ruled by the moon and Neptune. So that's interesting, because I've been doing a lot of research on Cancer celebrities, probably much more than I have in the last couple of years. And I've just been looking people up and looking at, trying to look up biographies and look up their early life, how they grew up, where they grew up, and then how they got into music or how they got into acting, something like that. And then their personal life. I kind of like to, it's interesting to see how many times people have been married. When I start to see people that have been married 3, 4, 5 times, sometimes that's indicative of a lifestyle like a rock star, where there's a lot of temptation and you're away from your significant other for months on end because of shows or touring. That can also be for actors or theater people as well. If you're doing something, you're away from your loved ones for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, and then you're working with other people. So I would imagine it's easy to be attracted to and hook up and find other people, even though you have someone at home. But I like to look those people up that have been married 3 or more times, because I like to find the indicators in the chart. And I probably will do a video on this, because a lot of people will ask me, I believe as an astrologer, when I look at someone's chart, I believe that there are, no matter how well-intentioned some people are, I think the chart can show indications that someone is not wired for a long-term commitment marriage, and possibly not even a long-term commitment relationship. Some charts, I think, show certain indicators that are so strong, so strongly independent, that the person will not and cannot submit enough to be able to live with someone under the same roof. They may be able to have separate residences and be committed to a relationship on some level, but there are definitely indicators. So I like to look up celebrities when I've seen that they've been married 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. It's kind of interesting, and there's always something there. As an astrologer, there's always something there we find in the chart. In a very general sense, if any of you get your chart done, and I can do that for you, I can do a natal chart and send it to you through email, or I could do a reading for you as well, an oral reading, or I could do a short essay, type up reading. But it's, in a general sense, charts that have strong Uranus aspects. Now, I'm not even talking about Aquarius planets, just talking about Uranus aspects. And the Uranus aspects that are the most challenging are the opposition and square. But any major Uranus, Sun Uranus, Venus Uranus especially, Moon Uranus, Mars Uranus, Uranus with the ascendant, Uranus possibly affecting the ruler of the 7th house, which is marriage and long-term relationships, something like that. So there's a lot there with Uranus that will show possibly rebelliousness or just not liking to follow routines or rules, which relationships have. You know, long-term relationships have a certain, there's a certain, you know, you have to show up. You have to be there and show up if you want your long-term relationship to continue. You have to be there and you have to be present. It doesn't mean it's always perfect, but you do have to be there. So if you're someone that's highly, highly individualistic and independent, whereas the Uranus aspects could show in a chart, it may be next to impossible for you to really go the distance. I'm going to write that down. To go the distance in certain relationships or even possibly certain jobs. It would have to be a very special kind of relationship where you and someone have a very good amount of space, physical space. And if two people agree on that, it can work. Relationships don't have to all be one way. You know, people have all sorts of different committed relationships and different marriages and things. So there's, you know, you have to figure out what works for you and the other person in modern times here, with all the you know, with all the distractions in the world and everything. But definitely something to think about. I may do a video on that, and or I may talk about that further in live streams, and we could look at some charts and examples of Uranus aspects. And the reason I bring that up is a lot of times one of the most common questions astrologers get asked by clients or just people that are curious is compatibility, is relationships. You know, I'm an Aquarius, I'm with a Gemini, or I'm a Gemini, I'm with a Cancer. Are we compatible? Or I'm looking to date, I'm looking to remarry, and I've dated these signs, you know, didn't work out, whatever. And but it's not that, it's so not that simple. And a more passive sign, like maybe like Pisces, would take on the flavors and the vibrations of the rest of the chart. So if there's a lot of strong aspects there or rough aspects with Uranus, that would say a lot in terms of how the person may behave in relationships, sort of thing. But the Cancer-3 Decan is July 11th to the 18th. It's the Neptune and the Moon. And so Cancer-3 and all the Cancer periods for that matter are, you know, much different than Aquarius, obviously, which is inconjunct, and it's different than having like Uranus aspects. For the Cancer person, you would look at the Moon and see what those aspects are to the Moon, and to a lesser extent Neptune, but definitely the Moon in the chart is really, really key for a Cancer. Cancers with an aggressive or extroverted Moon sign are going to be much different than Kevin Bacon is one Cancer male actor who has the Moon in Aries. And Kevin has a lot of personality. He always has. He's done a lot of roles that are very action-oriented. He's also played some villains. He can be a little cocky. He can be a little, you know, opinionated, and he can be yang. In addition to, he can be a little smug. So that combination of the Cancer and the Aries. So it's very important for Cancers to look at the Moon. But Cancer-3, you would also look to Neptune because it's a little bit of Pisces there. And the combination of these rulers can definitely create insecurity. And of course, this is often a theme with Cancer people in general. That doesn't mean that all Cancer people or Cancer planets are going to feel insecure. But the possibility, there's very strong potential and possibility when they feel stressed or they feel unappreciated in a job or a relationship or even a friendship, and they will maybe second guess or double think what's going on, and maybe that could create some insecurity. Now, I put here that there's sparks, insecurity, sparks, and power tripping. So what does that all mean? That's kind of odd choice of phrases there. Well, the Cancer-3 people, Cancer-3 folks are different than the first and second decans in the sense that not only do they have Neptune there, but because they're a later version, the fixed stars are a little different. The fixed stars can be very tenacious and very strong to create sparks, emotional sparks mostly. It's not so much like a spark like a fire sign, but it is emotional sparks. And Cancers are looking for that emotional thrill with people in their lives and hobbies and interests. And that they can be power tripping. But the power tripping comes back to insecurity. It's not, I don't think Cancer is necessarily a sign, this decan, that likes power for its own sake, but it's more so as a reaction. It's more so a sort of a defensive reaction to that feeling of insecurity or that feeling of not being appreciated or handled gently or properly, kind of thing. Because Cancer, the Cancer people I've known in this week, not a lot, but they can be very passive and sweet, but they can also, when they are hurt, they can really drum up a lot of emotional energy, not necessarily anger, but a lot of emotional energy or sparks because of that insecurity, and that they may feel that they need to try to control the situation because they're not feeling secure, sort of thing. And, you know, I follow a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists on social media, and one common theme they'll talk about is not only is control either an illusion or something that's not really you're able to grasp, but that there, in any relationship, your relationship with your boss, your friend, your spouse, or your partner, it's never 50-50. There's no way it's going to stay perfectly balanced and nice and easy and always be both people are giving 50-50 to the relationship. There's just no way. Energetically, we go up and down. Men have bioenergetic rhythms, biorhythms during the month, just like a woman's cycle and physical and emotional, psychological energy. So we're always going through that. So there's no way we can always give 100% at any given day during the month. And I think we expect that from our partners and friends and stuff. We expect so much, and then we have to think, are we giving that to them? Probably not, because on some days, you know, like last weekend, I was just shot with energy. I had no energy. So when you're that low on energy, you're even the best of intentions and your biggest heart to give to your relationships, you're not just not going to be able to deliver the same amount. So your spouse or your friend or whatever, so that might be, I'm giving 40% and they're giving 60 that weekend, that day or that weekend. You know, it's 60-40. And then maybe the next weekend I'm 60 and they're 40. So I think that's a good thing. It's one thing I'm learning, especially with the signs. You can't always expect everything from everyone. We can only give so much, and you know, the shortcomings of all of us and our flaws are frustrating, but we should just be able to move on, because life is too short to have to focus on all the little minute myopic problems with every single person, which we all have. You know, people that tune into certain people on YouTube, if you tune into me or don't tune into me, it's all because of frequency. It's not just what I'm saying. It's not just how I'm saying it, but it's frequency. So I'm not the least bit offended if people don't resonate with me or vibrate. Not everyone is going to. And you don't want everyone to just vibrate with you. You want to find your tribe. You want to find your people that understand where you're coming from. Not only the way you say it and what you're saying, but the whole essence of it. So the Cancer in relationships, the sparks and the power tripping, it's really, really hard. Cancers need to even things out. All Cancers, that's a lesson, is to even everything out, even those emotions. But it all can also spring into, The odd thing about a late Cancer person like this is they are simultaneously very savvy. They have good economic sense. They can be good business people, with teachers, professors. They have a very good sense of kind of like history and the current trends in time. They're very economic and frugal in that way. But they can also have sort of little addictions like spending. They can be overspenders or over something. So they can kind of be both, depending on their emotional states. So wherever Cancer is in your chart, if you have a Cancer planet, that is, it's mostly, or Cancer rising, it would be, it would behoove you to take up some sort of, anything, grounding, meditation, go near the sea, spend time, obviously, with animals, calm animals, and absorb that so that you can get on an even keel. And then, of course, if you're someone like me, I don't have any Cancer planets. If you're someone that doesn't have Cancer planets, of course, you'll have it on your chart on a house cusp. Mine is on my 8th house of death, resurrection, death, inheritances, and then others' resources. The 2nd house is my resources, and the 8th house is others. So apparently I'm very sensitive to others' resources and all kinds of things like that. Those sort of 8th house matters I'm intuitive about, and it makes me want to know what makes certain people tick in that 8th house way, sort of thing. So wherever you have Cancer in your chart, you will approach that area of life with a certain touchiness and sensitivity that you don't show in the rest of your life, the rest of the arena. If you're a Gemini rising, for example, most Gemini risings will have Cancer on the 2nd house, which is your values and your self-esteem. So you'll be very sensitive about that, and maybe very sensitive about how people perceive your values and esteem. So that's something. But it's more so the late degrees of Cancer here more applies to Cancer rising, especially Sun, Moon, or rising in Cancer. And that is more, a direct, powerful link to the emotions. And remember, Cancer is the only water sign that's cardinal. So there's 4 cardinal signs. Scorpio is fixed and Pisces is mutable. So cardinal signs are very pushy. They are pushers. They have to get their ideas and their actions and their intentions out there somehow. They're not going to just hold back forever and not make moves. And Cancer is no exception, no matter how passive or quiet they may seem. But Cancer 3s, that insecurity, what saves them is acumen. They have acumen. They could have business acumen. Like I said, they have an economic sense. They're very tuned into people. On an emotional level, they can read people that some other signs struggle with more. So they don't just observe people like an air sign would. Like a Gemini or an Aquarius would be a very good observer of people's energy and their essence, but not necessarily on an emotional wavelength. So this Cancer Decan has good acumen emotionally too. So it's not just like in business. The former CEO of Starbucks, Schultz, I think he's born this week. So there's a lot of Cancer men especially are very much suited to business. And they also like situations where they can get entrenched and cozy with their money and their tribe, and then it makes them feel secure. They can make a lot of money, but they can be taken care of by a family. The company is kind of like a family. That's very important to Cancer 3s. So they can express that at a deep level sometimes, the acumen. So that can help them. So there's a lot going on with Cancer underneath the surface, as is with all water signs. Scorpio is not the only mysterious one. There's a lot going on with Cancer underneath that can be unearthed by us, by other people that are non-Cancer. And there's a lot of goodness there. There's a lot of, and they have a horse sense. So this is literal, and it's also mythological for me. It's literal in the sense that they do have a good horse sense, because they can be very practical and shrewd. Cancer people can be dreamy one moment and kind of moony and kind of out there, but they can also be incredibly practical and very good, like I said, very good in business, very good with money. Cancer women are almost always, I've noticed Cancer females in particular, being so very, not only careful with their money about saving it, investing, but just really, really knowing how to work it to work for them over the long haul, kind of like Capricorn. The Capricorn Cancer polarity there is looking to hang in there and for the long haul, have your money work for you. And that's how they have a good horse sense. But they also have a mythological horse sense because of the star Procyon. And there's always, I know I mentioned this last year, but there's always Cancer energies in all the civilizations, if you look them up, that had a reverence or symbology of Cancer with all sorts of creatures and animals. Now, that's a lot of signs, obviously. There's a lot of signs in the constellation where there are ties to certain animals. But with Cancer, and I have yet to meet a Cancer person that doesn't love animals or incredibly connected to animals. And I find that most Cancers I've known, almost all of them, I'd say probably 90%, are dog people. Now, they may enjoy cats or a fish or maybe have a goat on their farm or something. But as far as day-to-day, they are really, and also I've met Cancers that have loved horses too. But I think dogs, for some reason, Cancer and dogs is a strong mix. But it rules the left eye. So I don't know if that ties to anything medically, but possibly Cancer people born this week should be careful of their left eye. Usually the eyes are tied to Aries because of the head, but this is specific to this constellation. And with this star, I wrote down some people that have Jupiter conjunct it because Jupiter amplifies everything. So these aren't people that are a sun in Cancer, but these are famous people that have the Jupiter Cancer at this level. So you have Joe Biden, Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain, and Robert Hand, the astrologer. So there's a very majestic, commanding nature for this Cancer person with this star. And when they have Jupiter conjunct it, these are people that are going to take things way too far. And they will also they could either have an incredible natural gift to take care of others in a big way, like a big family, like a company or a group, or like a small team that works again alongside them or under them if they're the boss. But they can also take things too far and be quite troubled as well. And I mean, Robert Hand is an amazing astrologer, and he has a very when you read his books, he has such a command of the material, but he also has a command emotionally, if that makes any sense, like an intuitive command. It's not just intellectual. He's very strong with that. So I think that's a very strong point. I'm going to look up more people that have Jupiter conjunct this star because Jupiter amplifies. Jupiter is a good thing to find out any fixed stars that relate to your Jupiter, because Jupiter is such a magnifying, amplifying planet to what it touches. And of course, you have to find out where that is in the chart, the aspects, and then of course what astrology system you're using as well. So these people, as you can see, these Cancer people, they could be introverted, they could be quiet, but do not underestimate them. There's definitely strength there. They relate to a number 3 on one level, not just because they're Cancer 3, but in numerology, they can relate to a 3, which is talkative and yet cultured. And this is approximately a planet that's around 25 to 26 degrees of Cancer. So, and of course, that is a very, very late degree of Cancer. If someone's sun was at 25 or 26 of Cancer at birth, when they turn 4 or 5, they would go through an emotional shift. Now, all children do in psychology. They all go through a shift. But at 4 or 5, this particular person going to have a progressed sun. Their essence and their ego is going to take on some Leo, because that's the next sign. Because when you go to 0 after 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30, you're going 0. That would be obviously be Leo when you're on the cusp. So that's kind of interesting there too. And of course, the opposite in 6 months is Capricorn 3. And these two together, if you were to put Cancer and Capricorn together, the late Cancer and late Capricorn, it's the most fleshed out and the most mature version of those signs. But Capricorn is very much aged, or has more wisdom, because it's closer to the end of the zodiac cosmic cycle, if you look at it in terms of years, cycles. And then, of course, Cancer, we have Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and Cancer. We're finishing up the 4th sign, and those together are manipulate. So Cancer 3 and Capricorn 3 have a similar ability to manipulate, but they do it in different ways. And, you know, I've mentioned this before, cardinal signs have to push, and cardinal signs have to have an impact as far as their force. So whatever their force is, wherever it is in the chart, you very rarely see, and that includes these famous people too, you very rarely see a famous person that achieves a certain stature and is able to put themselves out there without major cardinal angles. Very rarely do you see that. And you'll see Aries, Aries, Libra, Capricorn, and Cancer often on the angles, 1st house, 4th house, 7th house, or 10th, the angular houses. They often make configurations like crosses or squares, and they have aspects that, you know, propel, whether it's tense aspect or a free-flowing aspect that just lets it express, sort of thing. So any cardinal planet that has trines to another planet, that's really nice, but it's also easy. It's also too easy, so it doesn't mean the person creates any depth of character or creates anything substantial, even though they're easily able to express or achieve something. So fortunately, we need some trines and sextiles in our charts for some things to go easy, because the world is tough. But you'll very rarely find famous people without major Cancer, you know, cardinal signs like Cancer in the chart, and or with those angles. And we'll look at some charts in the future. I can elaborate on that. So Capricorn 3 is in 6 months. That's Saturn. Cancer, Capricorn 3. The interesting thing is, I've often met people born this week that I've actually thought were Capricorns, and it's not because I thought that they looked like Capricorns, but there was something about their introversion and something about their reserve that made me feel that they might be Capricorn. So, and it's happened vice versa, but more so, the Cancer person kind of reminds me of Capricorn 3. So I don't know if I'm picking up on something in their chart that possibly is Capricorn, or some kind of aspect with the Cancer planet, maybe a Saturn aspect that creates a more Capricorn type of disposition for those two planets, where there's an aspect with Saturn and something. If a Cancer person had Sun conjunct Saturn, that would be a very Capricornian type of Cancer. If they had the Moon conjunct Saturn, that Cancer had the Moon in a different sign, but it was conjunct their Saturn, they would be more emotionally serious, or may take on a certain seriousness with women because of the Moon, but it could also be men and women, like kind of an opposition, opposing men and women, for their emotional nature. So that just depends, but that's interesting how the polarities, you can often find that you think someone's one sign and they're sometimes the opposite, or they have that opposite in their natal chart, sort of thing. All right, we're about halfway in, and I see there's only 2 people. All right, I was hoping for more, but I got a slow night tonight. But we can talk about the transits. We also have Today's the 19th. We have a new moon coming up on the 24th, which is the new moon in Leo. And tonight I always like the moon in Taurus. I love it when I do a video or a live stream where the moon is in, it's hard to see, where the moon is in Taurus. Now this moon is coming up on a conjunction to Uranus. Let's see. Yep, Sunday morning Eastern time, that moon's going to move and touch Uranus. So now, of course, that's happening every time right now. It's happening every month when the moon transits Taurus, because Uranus is very slow moving, and we're at, even though we're at a very early degree of Gemini, it's a Gemini, it's still close to the Taurus-Gemini cusp. So hence the conjunction. So the moon in Taurus is more stable, and then you add the injection of the conjunction to Uranus, and it throws it off for a day or two. So it's kind of like if you feel stable now and you don't feel stable Sunday morning, give it a day or two, whatever you're trying to figure out, just let it go, and then let that Uranus aspect pass. The Uranus aspects aren't all good or bad, but they're always going to shake something up. And if something's stable and you kind of like it because it feels stable and cozy, people don't want Uranus shaking it up, sort of thing. Now, we have the Mercury retrograde in Leo tonight, and we have Leo on the 7th. This is tonight at 9 p.m. in 20 minutes. And then we have Aries in the 2nd. So, of course, we still have that Saturn retrograde Aries, the Neptune retrograde Aries, all here. Of all that. And then we have that node in Pisces, of course, retrograde in the 1st. Then we have all this, the Pluto Aquarius, Pluto almost conjunct the ascendant. And then we have Sagittarius up here on the 10th house, at least just temporarily. So no major Sag, a little bit of Leo, but of course in 2.5 days, we're going to be entering the Sun in Leo. And that's always a huge shift. I know I talked about it last year on my live stream, and in my video about Leo before that, the year before that. There's always that shift. And of course, the last month, all Cancer people have been getting their solar return, which should mean healthier times for them, and more life force, more energy, and also higher intuition, especially with family and friends, because that's what Cancer specializes in, sort of thing. But right now, there's not a lot of fire. Fire is pretty low, and it's pretty minimal as far as the outside planets. And that Mercury in Leo is retrograde, of course. So that is, let's see. So not too much longer. Yep, so the Sun enters Leo on Tuesday morning, the 22nd. And then we'll have the Sun in Leo and Mercury in Leo. And of course, we still have Venus in Gemini. So we have that Uranus, Gemini, and Venus. Jupiter is now moving along faster at Cancer at 9. So Jupiter has also conjunct the 1st decan early Cancer, and the 1st decan Cancer people have already gotten any planets that were around there. But anyone that has a planet that's like 8, 9, 10, or 11 of Cancer is getting a conjunction right now. So that's going to amplify it. And it's not going to be as quietly sensitive or introverted as a normal Cancer planet, because Jupiter is touching it, and Jupiter will help it. It will help it expand or grow somehow, depending on where it is in the chart. And then, so that Taurus, there's no Capricorn transiting. Capricorn is taking a back seat right now in the middle half of the year. So you have Capricorn, 3 and 6 months from now. Obviously, the the solstice, the winter solstice now is 5 months away instead of 6. And then Mars is at 19 of Virgo. So Mars in Virgo, I don't hear many astrologers talking about this lately at all. Mars in Virgo is like one of those placements that it is just there. Now, this is not anything bad about Virgo, but I take it, the energy of Mars in Virgo is it's got this kind of very low key drive, but the key word or key phrase is low key, and it's unemotional. It's kind of a little behind the scenes, but yet it wants to always be useful. Mars in Virgo has to act on whatever it is they want to reform or fix. So I've known many people, mostly men, with Virgo Mars. And while I find them funny and helpful, the Mars in Virgo, to me, can be quite annoying because the Mars Virgo energy does not know when to stop. In other words, sometimes if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That actually does apply. I know that's a very commonplace and trite expression. So sometimes if it ain't broke, you still need to expand on your life if you want to be lazy. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So if things are working well and you're still growing with something, Virgo, Mars in Virgo is the sign that'll get in there and try to mess with it. And Mars in Virgo would be the #1 placement that would get in there and try to mess with it and fix it and be critical of it. So I find that kind of irritating, even though they can be incredibly humble and they're incredibly helpful people. You ask them for help, they will do it. Often they'll do it for no money, without being asked, and they won't complain about it. So they have good qualities, but it can be a very critical. It's hard to have for me to have such a critical energy for Mars. So a baby born tonight, he or she would have that Mars in Virgo. Now it's not retrograde, so at least that energy has a little more of a direct line, depending on the aspects. Mars and Uranus, even though they're both, Mars and Uranus don't make an aspect. And then, of course, he or she, the baby would not have any Capricorn planets for the Virgo to trine. But it would be, the baby would have a Moon-Mars trine with Moon in Taurus and Mars in Virgo. So that's nice. So that would help. That helps the Virgo. But yeah, there's something about that Mars in Virgo. I don't know, maybe I'm biased, but something about that's not the sweetest in the world. But it's very, very good for work or service because the Mars Virgo energy is all about that and won't shy away from just serving something bigger than themselves. So there's a lot of pluses in that. All right, so let's see. It's 1/4 of. Oh, we only have one person left. Wow, it got light. I'm going to have to probably try an earlier time or a later time to try to access these time zones. So really quick before I talk about the celebrities, the new moon is the 24th. It's going to be Sun and Moon conjunct in Leo. So there it is, Sun and Moon conjunct in Leo, and obviously it's Leo cusp, and it's early because it's 2 degrees 8 minutes. Sun and Moon in Leo, and Mercury at 13 of Leo retrograde. So for that one day, like I said, I just said a few minutes ago, there's not a lot of fire, except a sprinkling of Leo and outer Aries. But for that one day, so that's Thursday. So Thursday morning when you wake up, that new moon will be culminating by the afternoon, at least Eastern time, and that'll be very, very pure, very, very pure raw Leo energy. 2 degrees, obviously not conjunct the Mercury, way too far away, 11 degrees, and the Sun and the Moon are not retrograde, obviously. So they're both moving forward with that Leo energy. So the new moon Leo energy should not only fire up all Leo people, every Leo person on the planet will get a boost, you know, with their personality, hopefully their energy and their health. I wish Leos good health. So they'll probably get a boost in that. And they will also want to express, or they're going to want to either, you know, go camping, go away for the weekend, go to a movie, go to a show. They're not going to want to just sit home and do nothing. They're going to want to be entertained, or go to a fancy restaurant, you know, or go somewhere where there's live music or live theater or something. So that's gonna jumpstart the rest of the summer for everybody. And there are a lot of shows and concerts coming up in the next couple months. An amazing amount, even just here on the East Coast. There's really a lot. But for that one day only, you're going to have those 3 planets in Leo. So once the new moon wanes, then it goes into Virgo. For those couple days, it's still the new moon. Then it'll go into Virgo, and then we'll have the sun in Leo. Sun will be around 5 degrees of Leo, and then we'll have Mercury moving slowly because it's retrograde, a little slower. But that's it. We're going to still have, on Thursday, we still don't have any major Sag. That'll be on the 2nd house. And then we'll have Aries on the 5th house. And we'll have all those Aries planets that are retrograde in the 4th house of family. And then we'll have the node in Pisces retrograde in the 4th house. So what does that mean? It's just basically all about Leo. And again, I mentioned, so this is the last talk about Cancer. Next week we'll talk about the Cancer-Leo cusp, but this is the last talk about Cancer proper. And Cancer is all about the moon. So I look immediately to the moon when I look up a Sun and Cancer person. The moon is almost more important to me than them being a Cancer. But with the Leo person, the moon is not as important. It is very important to look at, just like the ascendant. But the Leo sun comes back to the sun. It reinforces itself because it's ruled by the sun. So I would look at the Leo person's sun and Leo aspects and their house placement. That would be more important to me than their moon sign. I would look at that, then their moon sign, then I'd look at the ascendant and the rest to get their vibration. But one good thing is Mars, our energy moving, is not retrograde on the new moon. Jupiter, the expansive principle, especially taking care of friends and family and expressing love and sympathy. Jupiter, direct, not Venus is going to be direct on the new moon. Uranus is going to be direct. You know, I said Mars. So all that's good. However, we are going to have, you know, Pluto, the node, Saturn, Neptune, and Mercury all retrograde. So there's quite a bit that are direct. It's about half and half sort of thing. But it really is going to be Leo. Leo's the star of the show. And the Leo new moon is kind of one of the strongest of the year not because Leo's necessarily the strongest sign, although Leo is a strong sign, but it's because it's the summer and people are out. You know, we're not hiding in our caves because of the weather. We're out and we're doing things and we're more exposed. We want attention from family and friends and things like that. And, you know, there's a lot of things that take place outdoors. But Leo is a sign that wants to be seen and heard. Even a shy Leo still wants attention. So that will rub off on all of us because the sun and moon in Leo is all about being appreciated and respected and seen. Like, look at me. That's Leo sort of thing. So we may all want to be actors or actresses in the next month. Maybe we might want to take a class or something because of that Leo. But for those of us that don't have a Leo planet, especially a major Leo planet, like Sun, Moon, Rising, or maybe Venus, you look to where it is on your cusp, on your house cusps. And now, in the new moon, I think I mentioned this, the new moon Leo is hiding in the 9th house here. So it's not quite, it's Cancer is on the house of, on the midheaven, the house of work and career for that day, for Thursday, but it's hiding in the 9th. So when I say hiding, it's behind the scenes. It's still very potent and active. So all that Leo energy is all about other worlds, other meaning other countries, other cultures, others that are different. You know, the ninth house is philosophy, religion, travel, and that also means spiritual or astral travel as well. So with all that Leo energy there's going to be a lot of passion for ninth house activities, and and I would say in a mundane sense, it just means there's going to be a lot of passion probably for people to travel, even though Mercury's retrograde. So just be extra careful and read the fine print 2 times. You know, a lot of astrologers will say, don't ever travel when Mercury's retrograde. Well, you got to live your life, right? You can't be so cautious every single week of every month that you never live your life. Then by the time you're 90, you're like, okay, now I'm ready, and it's too late. So take that with a grain of salt. Just be careful. Just don't I wouldn't sign anything like major in the next week, you know, sort of thing if you can wait. But the Leo new moon is looking, you know, it's looking pretty nice. So I look forward to that Leo boost of energy for myself. So let's look at the celebrities. I always pick celebrities that are born this week. They're not just any Cancer or any period from the sign. It's always people born this week. And sometimes it's a little bit off. Like I might take someone that's the 19th that I feel like is more of a Cancer-3 than the cusp. But Bob Casale is one of the co-founders. We lost him when he was in his 60s. He's one of the co-founders of the epic new wave group Devo. And Devo is now touring in the US, I think in Europe. So they're back. But he was excellent and really created a very, very funny, humorous, but also very moody and ambient sort of sounds, quirkiness for the group Devo. Brian Glasscock is a more obscure musician. Again, very, very watery and creative. Brian May is the guitarist of Queen, the biggest, probably Queen is the #1 most revered group in England. So in England, the you know, monarchy and everything, they all love Queen, who is of course Freddie Mercury, and Brian May and the rest of the guys. But Brian May is also an astrophysicist. He's an incredibly brilliant guy. Not only can he and plays the guitar like you know, like a virtuoso. So amazing, very, very tenacious. Joe Satriani is another rock guitarist, also very, very very mysterious, and his music is kind of a little out there. So again, the Cancer people that have that moon influence, the Neptune influence is there. It's a little hint of fantasy and Piscean kind of thing when you hear it in the music. Ian Curtis was the lead singer of Joy Division, and he was very troubled, and we lost him too young. But also very, very ambient, moody, and very tenacious and thoughtful. Stuart Copeland, I mentioned him every year. He's one of the best drummers in the world, technical drummers, and he's the drummer of the former group Police, The Police, one of the biggest bands ever, and he's amazing. Ed Kowalczyk, another very emotional singer from a group called Live, a 90s alternative group. Really, really, really very emotional. That's the thing about males that are Cancers. Like if males that are Cancers can come to terms with their sensitive side and their emotional side, and they can put that into an art form where they're comfortable with it, so they still feel masculine and strong, and then they can express that, so they don't feel weak by expressing it because they're putting it into music or acting or whatever. That's the best combination. That's where a Cancer would feel very fulfilled and secure. Geezer Butler is one of the founders of heavy metal. He's one of the founders of Black Sabbath with Ozzy Osbourne. I think everyone knows Sharon and Ozzy Osbourne, where their characters. Everyone knows them from, you know, MTV and reality TV. But they literally, that group, he literally is one of the godfathers of heavy metal, which of course branched out to hard rock and then just regular rock and pop rock and everything. But in the 60s and 70s, he was a very young guy, and he just did a tribute to Ozzy in Glastonbury, England. He was part of that, and Sounds like a very sweet, sensitive guy. I just heard an interview with him. He did not sound like a macho, heavy metal guy at all. So good for him. I'm hearing a lot of interviews with men in their 60s and 70s that are aging rock stars or actors. And I'm really liking the trend of men accepting more other sides of themselves and being a little more balanced as far as their yin and yang. It's a good thing to see. Christine McVie is she's passed, but she's the antidote to Stevie Nicks. So you know Stevie Nicks from Fleetwood Mac. She sings Rhiannon and Sarah. Well, Christine McVie was sort of the early star of the band, of one of the incarnations of the band when she was like in her 20s. And she was great, really. And in some ways, her singing and songwriting is a little more emotional than Stevie Nicks, who's a Gemini. I find that Christine's is a little more folky and a little more emotional, which makes sense, being born under Cancer-3, the Moonchild. And then the last one is Trevor Horn. Trevor Horn is a master producer and musician and arranger. He's like a Quincy Jones for dance and pop music. That's how I would describe him. He's like the Quincy Jones equivalent of British pop, dance, funky alternative music. He's produced so many different bands, and he's produced songs, and he's done all sorts of interesting. He absorbs the styles of everyone he works with, which is also very typical of a Neptune and Moon Cancer person. But great music. And these are the transits I talked about before. Mercury, Leo, 15, Saturn, Aries at 1. So early Aries people, I know I mentioned this about 6 months ago. I think I mentioned this in the winter. I said, get ready for the early Aries people in the summer and the fall, because you're going to get your Sun-Saturn conjunction. So this is not easy for Aries people right now. Early Aries. We're talking about 0, 1, and 2 degrees, basically. So if you know an Aries person that's born right on the spring, right when spring starts, and they're 0 or 1 of Aries or 2, then this Saturn is conjuncting their Sun. That could create something very heavy in their life, maybe even the loss, a death, a loss of a loved one, or someone close. But it will make things very heavy and serious for them. So early Aries people, I feel for you right now, and that's going to be there for a while. And then eventually it's going to conjunct all the Aries Sun people, and of course all the Aries planets. Neptune, same thing. Neptune's at 2 degrees, conjuncting the early Sun and Aries people. Now Saturn makes things serious, but Neptune makes things a little foggy. But it could also give you creativity, and it can give an Aries person softness too. So an Aries person that might not normally be as comfortable being a little softer or gentler with people, the Neptune conjunct the Sun could help with that. And then, of course, we know this Pluto Aquarius at 2 degrees retrograde. It's going to be there forever. That's conjuncting early Aquarius people. And I'm not even talking about the other signs, like the opposites and stuff, but the early Aquarius people born like January, around January 23rd, 22nd, 24th. They're getting the conjunction Pluto the Sun. That's also extremely heavy. That goes for any Aquarius, Capricorn, Aquarius cusp planet that's close to that as well. And then the North Node in Pisces is at 20. So that could be affecting any Pisces planet that's near that degree. And it could create, if it was Chiron or Chiron, it would be more of old wounds. It could bring up an old wound where that Pisces planet might feel sad and want to cry. But it's not necessarily a wound from this lifetime. It's not literal. It's not necessarily, it's a wound like my mom didn't take care of me or my dad was mean to me or whatever. Not like that. It's Chiron is the wounded healer. But since it's not Chiron and it's the node, it has to do more with destiny or fate. So that could relate to, it's just conjuncting your Pisces planet. It could still make you feel sad or heavy, but it would also tell that Pisces planet, this is time to wake up, get that psychic intuition going, and do what you're meant to do. It's shining a light. The node is shining a light on those Pisces planets. So anyone that has 18, 19, 20, 21 degrees of Pisces, whoa, because it's conjuncting that, and it can really enhance your Piscean faculties of that watery intuition that you have that's so hard to explain to others. So if you have that, it's not always easy. It's not, you can't really explain it with words to people unless you happen to be lucky enough to be talking to another intuitive that just gets it. And they go, no, you don't have to. Yeah, no, I get it. Totally got it, kind of thing. So that sort of thing. But the North Node can also, it could be a nod to a past life as well. But it's not necessarily tied to wounds like Chiron would be. Because right now, let's see, I know I didn't mention that before. Hold on 1 second before I go. That's why I wanted to look up. Okay, so Chiron is located at 27 degrees of Aries right now. And I didn't have that point on my chart. But so Chiron is 27 degrees of Aries. So anybody that has a late Aries planet or almost early Taurus, it is conjuncting that. But it's just a time. It doesn't mean a wound is going to last, or you're going to feel that wound again. Like you're not going to feel another gunshot that happened in a past life. You just have to let it go. That's all, sort of thing. And I feel like I said that about a year ago about these Aries planets too. I'm feeling an eerie. I'm going to have to go back and if you want, go back a year ago and try to find this Cancer video or the Cancer Leo video or the live stream, I mean, and see if I did say the same kind of things, because I'm kind of getting that feeling. But thank you so much. I know it's been a very light night, but thanks for welcoming me back. And most likely next week, most likely the live stream will be July 26th, a week from tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time here on YouTube at Astroscoop 3801. And don't forget to subscribe, please. I still have, 80% of people on average, 80 to 85% of people that are not subscribed. That's 8 or 9 out of 10. So please sign in and subscribe. Click all are personalized. And follow me on X and Instagram. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. And don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, all that stuff. But thank you so much. Enjoy the new moon this week, because that should be a nice boost for everyone. All right. Have a great week.